Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on food waste prevention in the fresh produce sector, and thank you for your time this morning. My name is Helen Hawley, and I will be hosting this session, which will last up to an hour. Firstly, this webinar is being recorded and will be available on the RAP website shortly to share with your colleagues. We will send you a link to where it is saved after the session with any follow-up materials. Secondly, if you are having any IT issues, please let us know through the comments box, and we will get back to you. To help the webinar run smoothly and minimise background noise for other people on the line, we request that you mute your microphone and turn the camera off on your computer. Screens can also be maximised by using the double-ended arrows on the top right-hand side of the screen. There's an opportunity to ask questions throughout the session via the question and answer box on the right-hand side of your screen. We will answer as many of these as possible during the 15-minute Q&A session following the presentation. Our speakers today are Sue Riley and Philippa Hoy from RAP. Sue's main focus is in consumer food waste prevention, coming from a food industry background. She has worked in product, process and packaging development, plus technical and quality roles in food manufacturing, and was general manager of an advisory service business before joining RAP. Philippa focuses on supply chain food waste prevention and has a background in environmental consultancy and promoting resource efficiency, particularly within the food and drink sector. On the right-hand side of this slide, you'll see an overview of this webinar. In the next hour, we will provide you with information on food waste, discuss how you and your business can help tackle it, and highlight the guidance that is available. Plus, as mentioned previously, there'll be an opportunity for questions and answers during the last 15 minutes. I will now hand over to Sue, who will kick off with our objectives for the session and some background information.
So good morning, everyone, and thank you to Helen for the introductions. Fresh produce is one of our priority categories, so we have three key objectives for this webinar today: to raise awareness of the issue of food waste, to highlight the help and guidance that's available, plus also encourage those working within the category to take action. We quite often discuss supply chain and consumer food waste prevention separately, and so we're really keen to bring these together and talk to you about everything your business can do to tackle food waste all under one banner. The Court Hold commitment is a responsibility deal to improve resource efficiency and reduce the carbon impact of the UK grocery retail sector. RAP is responsible for the agreement, which has three targets, and these are packaging optimisation, supply chain waste prevention, and household food waste prevention. Phase 3 will be coming to an end at the end of December 2015, and of course our primary objective is around achieving our targets, although we do understand that we have limited time now and that some actions that can be taken will be longer term. So we also wanted to use this session as a way of helping you to gear up for Court Hold 2025, which is the next voluntary agreement, and if possible to help you and your businesses to reap some of the benefits, which can be both financial and environmental, sooner rather than later. And there is a link on the bottom of this slide for more information on the Court Hold commitment and Court Hold 2025. So just before I hand over to Philippa, I just wanted to briefly mention our Fresh Produce Digest. This is a short interactive document that will be downloadable from our website from next week and will be regularly updated with our latest information. It's part of a series of 9 digests covering specific audiences and categories, which brings together all of the information that you might need to tackle food waste in a user-friendly format. So we hope that these will be a really valuable resource for you. So I'm just going to hand over to Philippa now, who's going to cover supply chain food waste prevention.
Thanks, Sue. So good morning, everyone. I'm quickly going to run through the key advice, guidance and tools that we have for the produce sector to help you in the battle to reduce waste in the supply chain. Firstly, quick question for you. No prizes, I'm afraid. This is just for fun. In the UK, how much fresh produce is lost or wasted each year by food retailing and manufacturing businesses? Is it 1, 2 or 3 million tonnes? And the answer is 2 million tonnes. Excuse me. Putting that into context, the total amount of food waste created in the UK in food and drink manufacturing and retailing is 4.3 million tonnes a year. So nearly half of this is fresh produce. it's estimated that by taking action to reduce this waste, the UK fresh produce industry can make savings of between 400 and 500 million pounds a year. So on top of the environmental impact and the food poverty issues surrounding food waste, there's a real commercial benefit to tackling it. So for fresh produce, our research has shown that the most significant causes of waste are products which do not reach their intended market outlet. This is mainly due to oversupply or not meeting or changing the specification requirements. Loss of product because of poor supply chain management. So, for example, changing packaging specifications which provide less protection for products, or incorrect demand forecasting. Now, these types of losses are estimated between to cause 100,000 to 150,000 tonnes of waste a year. So that's between about 5 and 7.5% of total waste arising for the sector. And then there's all the damage to handling and storage at depots and stores. So what's the best way to tackle this waste? Based on the extensive research that RAP has done in the sector, we've developed our 5-5-5 approach to waste reduction to help companies take the most effective actions on food waste. So this 5-5-5 approach covers 5 crucial actions we want companies to take, 5 areas we found give the biggest bang for your buck when reducing waste, and a simple 5-stage process to help tackle waste hotspots. And I'm just briefly going to talk you through each of these 5s. So the first really key action is to measure your waste. Now, companies often don't have a real understanding of how much waste they're actually producing. And a lot of waste is actually invisible. It's not considered waste. So it's only when you take effective action to properly measure and map waste that you get a true picture of what's going on. So once you know what you're dealing with, you need to know how much it's really costing you. Many companies just look at the disposal costs, but there's so much more value that's gone into the waste than just those costs. There's the ingredients, the packaging, the energy, the water, the labour. And when you consider all of these, the business case for taking action can really change. So what you can see on screen is RAP's suggested calculation formula for the true cost of waste. So number 3 is set reduction targets. And the key thing here is the word reduction, because there's so many tolerance level targets that I come across in industry. So if waste doesn't go above a certain level, it's just left and not considered at all. Everything's considered tickety-boo. So we really do want people to focus on setting progressively targets that are reducing. Taking action on hotspots. So once you've measured your waste and looked at the cost, then you'll know what the most cost-effective areas are for you to target. And sometimes they're not the really obvious ones. And we've got advice on how to do that, which I'll come to a bit later on. And the 5th crucial area is to create a culture of waste prevention. So this is where senior management really need to lead the charge, and it's very important that you have a waste reduction policy. And then you've got to engage your employees on waste reduction. And what we found was, talking to industry, companies do want to do this, but there's nothing out there. That there are tools for energy and water, but not for waste. So RAP has been busy putting together a program for you. That's called Your Workplace Without Waste. So what is it? This is an employee engagement program focused on waste reduction in the workplace. It's designed to be used by all food and drink companies, from factories to depots to stores. Now, the reason the same materials work through all of these very different situations is it's all about behaviour change. We're trying to change the way people think and act. We're not telling them what to do. Now, this is an ongoing programme, and we'll be able to add to it in the future. For example, that we're currently developing some posters and a screensaver to add to the notes and the guidance that we've already developed. So how does it work? There's 5 interactive activities to run with staff, and the point of these is to help them understand the importance of dealing with waste and the impacts that it has, teach them the techniques to recognise, measure and cost the waste, as I've been talking about, and then they come up with the solutions to the problems, and then they own those solutions and put them into action to prevent waste. Excuse me. The training's designed to be provided by a cascade process. So we've produced guidance to help train trainers. So somebody in a company can train up a team of champions, for example, who then run through these activities on a peer-to-peer basis with other staff. It's flexible because we know how busy everyone is, and taking time out for training is tricky. So the activities are usually between 20 and 30 minutes each. You can either run them together in about 3 hours, or you might want to split them up over several days or even weeks. So we've really tried to make it flexible. And also pick a mix. You know, we've produced a whole program, but if you just want to use elements of our program, perhaps to put into an existing sustainability engagement program or your induction training or something, then that's absolutely fine. So what's included? The first part of the programme is the toolkit, sort of the background advice, and that's got 3 elements. The first is a guide to help you kickstart a waste reduction campaign with lots of tips and advice about everything that goes around the core programme that we've produced. And then we've got these step-by-step notes to help train up the champions so they feel comfortable running through the activities with their peers. And the third element is a guide to maintaining momentum. And this is back to this idea of embedding a culture and making sure that any waste reduction campaign isn't just a one-hit wonder. So we've got useful material and advice, including everything you need to run a kind of Dragon's Den style ideas competition, which we've called Itching to Pitch. So then we come to the second part of the programme, which is the actual resources for staff. First, a guide for managers, which is a self-study guide that gives them all the information and tools that they need to take the right actions on waste reduction, including how to make sure any employee engagement campaign is a success. And then we've got these 5 interactive activities that I've been talking about. And we very much hope that the managers will get involved in those as well. It's just we've got additional support for them as well. So all these materials should be published in October with posters and a screensaver coming a bit later. If you'd like to find out more, we've got a short 2-page overview note that we can send. And also, I recorded a 30-minute webinar last week walking through the programme in more detail that you can have a listen to. Okay, so that's the 5 key actions we recommend to businesses. So now we'll move on to the 5 areas that RAP research has shown have the biggest potential for waste and cost reduction. And the first of these is improving systems and processes. So here we're talking about things like range rationalisation, improving forecasting, getting more available life out of a product, running promotions so that they don't cause waste. And all these sorts of areas are, where small tweaks can really make big gains. And we've got guidance on many of these areas to help. The second area is reducing secondary and tertiary packaging. There's been loads of progress on primary packaging, and we don't think there's so many more opportunities there without creating damage and more food waste. But there are still lots of real easy wins on reducing secondary and tertiary packaging. So we've put all this advice together in a digest. Sue mentioned the digest for the produce sector, and this is one specifically on all our packaging guidance to help you find the information you need. So the third key area is redistribution of food surpluses. Now, amounts being redistributed that is sent for either human consumption through a secondary market or a charity route or to animal feed have increased significantly over the past few years, and retailers particularly have been taking action on this. But there's still huge potential to improve and redistribute so much more. But we do recognise that there's lots of barriers preventing this from happening, so we're taking action to help. So the key things that the barriers that we found and the things that are needed to help are to have a common language to help communication and standardise procedures against all those involved in redistribution to make the operations more efficient. So RAP's been working to develop a standard partnership model for food redistribution. And we've been doing this with support from our Quartile 3 industry working group. So the purpose of this model is to provide a structured and efficient approach to creating food redistribution partnerships between the surplus food suppliers and the recipients, or to formalise any partnerships that are already existing. So this takes account of the needs of everybody on both sides of the equation, and it aims to lead to a more structured approach to identifying the food surpluses and getting them out there. Now, this model is designed to be neutral. It'll work with all the different types of channels for redistribution. So whether it's a charity or a commercial route, whether it's a national interface network, or you're dealing locally direct with a church or some sort of organisation. So there's no judgment about what works best. It's designed to help everyone. So we'll be publicising this model when it's complete, and we do hope that it's something you'll use in conjunction with your redistribution partners. So if it can't go to humans, animals are the next best thing. Now, obviously, the decision whether surpluses are redistributed for human consumption or animal feed will be based on what's best for an individual business. RAP is carrying out research to make the options and the business case clearer regarding animal feed, because there's often significant cost savings over surpluses that might currently be sent to anaerobic digestion or landfill. So this guidance we're producing is designed to be a one-stop shop. There's various guidance out there in different areas and the different agencies. We're trying to bring all of that together in plain English, together with some case studies that will demonstrate the commercial benefits and also how any safety issues can be effectively dealt with. So that's all coming soon as well. Okay, so we're back onto our fourth key area that we found is the best way to reduce waste, and that's in using a lean or a continuous improvement approach. Now, you might have your own systems in place for this already. If not, RAP has some tools to help, which again I'll come to in a moment. But that holistic view of things, that sort of lean approach, really does have huge benefits. And the final key area is to collaborate. In all of the work that we've done, we found where there's collaboration with a customer and or your own suppliers, that problems can be solved, well, first of all identified and then solved to get the biggest amounts of waste reduced and the biggest cost savings. Okay, so we're on to the final 5 of our 555 approach, and this one relates to the 5 stages of RAP's cunningly entitled WASTE methodology that you can see on screen. So this is a short, straightforward problem-solving discipline based on lean and continuous improvement techniques to help prevent waste and prevent and reduce waste, useful within a company's operations, and it doesn't contain any Japanese methodology terminology. So if you're looking for something that's really easy for people to get their heads around and get action going quickly, this is a great tool to use. Now, we've also got another tool that's particularly relevant for fresh produce companies that takes a wider scope, and this is RAP's Whole Chain Resource Efficiency Toolkit. This expands the WASTE problem-solving approach across the entire value chain. So now we're talking from farm to fork. It also focuses on waste in all its forms. So it's not just food and packaging. It also includes product and materials waste, water, energy, time, and space. So this guide includes help on how to get all the necessary members of a supply chain to collaborate to make the approach effective, because getting the people, the right people talking to each other is the crucial step and can often be the most difficult one. So there's all that help there for you. And then I just want to round up my presentation today by mentioning one case study project that uses this whole chain resource efficiency approach. So this project focused on Cooperative Foods' potato supply chain, and that was when they were integrated with their farm operations at cooperative farms, which of course is not the case now. But the focus was on maximising the whole crop to increase yields and reduce farm waste, along with irrigation improvements and looking at the best varieties to use for the market. So what they did was walk the chain from farm to fork, the project team. They identified the current position and an ideal future position that has lower impact, fewer resources, and improved profitability. And then they identified the short-term, the long-term actions that were needed to get to that ideal position. So it was found that value is lost at every stage, as you can see on screen now, but notably in the pack house and in the home, and each of those is about 20% of the waste. But a number of potential changes were identified that could save the co-op and its supply chain £600,000 per year. For example, we found that reducing the allowable size for main crop varieties by just 2 millimetres could improve supply chain profitability by £100,000 for every 50,000 tonnes of product sold. Looking at the yield across the whole chain, rather than just at the harvested yield, can lead to different choices of potato variety. As some varieties can be more susceptible to greening, damage, bruising, etc. And average faults can differ by more than 10% across the varieties. So again, it's taking that holistic view. The team also worked with the Potato Council that helped bring together the UK's major packers, and the discussion of waste from farm to fork has led to an agreement on clearer and more consistent advice to consumers on storing potatoes in the home, reducing household waste as well. So other whole chain projects on apples and onion supply chains have now been completed that you might find interesting, and they're all signposted in the digest. So you can see that there are huge benefits on offer by taking steps to map waste, cost it properly, and target hotspots, with supply chain collaboration and employee engagement being the real keys to success. So I've covered a lot very quickly, but the Fresh Produce Digest covers all of this and provides the links to all the detailed guidance and tools that I've mentioned, plus a load more. So we've covered reducing waste in the supply chain. So I'm now going to hand back to Sue, who will discuss ways to help consumers reduce waste in our homes.
Thanks very much, Philippa. So now we're going to take a quick look at consumer food waste prevention, looking at some of the facts and figures, highlighting opportunities for action, plus also showing you where you can find useful information that can help you and your business to take action. So as Philippa did, just starting off with a quick question. In the UK, we waste around 15 million tonnes of food each year. So how much of this comes from our homes? Is it A, 2 million tonnes, B, 7 million tonnes, or C, 14 million tonnes? And just while you think about that, I'm just letting you know that the 15 million tonnes of food waste we create would fill 120 million rubbish trucks, and if they were put bumper to bumper, they would reach from London to Singapore. So the answer to the question is 7 million tonnes, and that 7 million tonnes would fill Wembley Stadium to the brim 9 times over. So this slide shows the breakdown of that 15 million tonnes, and you can see that household food waste is the single largest contributor, which might actually be surprising to some people. So you might ask whether consumers are actually bothered about food waste, and I'm pleased to say that they are. This slide is taken from the FSA biannual Public Attitudes Tracker report, which is available on the food.gov.uk website, and these results are from May 2015, and it shows that when people were asked about concerns over wider food issues, food waste actually came out as number 2, and it is more often than not in the top 4. And this time round, it even ranked above the price of food, which is normally number 1. So research shows that consumers are not only concerned about food waste, but they also expect and want the industry to help them to reduce food waste in their homes. So just going back to that 7 million tonnes, we split that down into 3 categories. We have unavoidable, so for example, banana skins, bones and eggshells, which even we wouldn't suggest that people eat. Possibly avoidable, so things like potato and apple peelings and crusts of bread. And then avoidable, and that's food that was edible at some point before it was thrown away. And as you would expect, our main focus is on tackling avoidable household food waste. So the 4.2 million tonnes of avoidable household food waste is actually worth 12.5 billion every year to the consumer. And there are 2 main reasons given for this waste. And these are not used in time, costing 5.6 billion, and cooked, prepared and served too much, costing 4.1 billion, so accounting for 9.7 billion of that 12.5 between them. And these top 2 reasons are where we focus our efforts, and we would recommend that you do as well. So looking at avoidable household food waste, by weight you can see here that fresh vegetables and salad and fruit make up a total of 27%, so this is the highest category. And by cost they make up a total of 21%, so again the highest category. So these levels of avoidable household food waste means that as consumers we throw away 13 billion 5-a-day portions every year. So hopefully you can see why fresh produce is a priority category for us. And in terms of the reductions seen since we started work in this area, fresh vegetables and salad is in fact one of the categories that shows very little change between 2007 and 2012. So here are a few more facts and figures. Every day in UK homes we throw away equivalent to approximately 1.5 million whole tomatoes, 1.4 million whole bananas and 5.8 million whole potatoes. So how many of these that were collected by local authorities were in the form of actual whole tomatoes, bananas and potatoes? Well, it was 76% of the tomatoes, 90% of the bananas and 81% of the potatoes. So moving on to the action that you can take to help tackle this issue. If you don't remember anything else about consumer food waste prevention after this webinar, then please remember that you can download this interactive PDF, which takes you through all the actions that you and your business can take to make an impact and help prevent food waste in our homes. And you can see a link there to download it at the bottom of the slide. So we use and recommend a 2-tier approach. And this is consumer engagement, which is mostly our Love Food, Hate Waste campaign. And this works on raising awareness and encouraging behaviour change in consumers, which would also include in-store and online activities. And then we have changing the retail environment, and this is about enabling that consumer behaviour change. So what does changing the retail environment mean? Well, it's about making changes to labelling, products and packaging that are designed to help consumers waste less food. And you'll find more information about our labelling recommendations in the Concept to Consumer PDF that I've just talked about. So how do these changes help? Well, it's all about making it easier for consumers, making it easier for them to buy the right amount of food, store it correctly, and use what they've bought before they have to throw it away. So in terms of the behaviours that we're trying to influence, these are all about planning, understanding dates, storing food correctly, making the best use of the freezer, understanding the value of packaging in waste prevention, getting portions right, and then using up leftovers if you have them. And the activity of our Love Food, Hate Waste campaign is designed to do just this. And we ask that you think about how you can do the same with your products and also your communication channels. So something else that we'd like you to consider is the role of packaging in consumer food waste prevention. Research in a report that we published in March 2015 showed us that there is a demand for on-pack guidance about storage, and the majority of consumers say that they would use it if they knew it was there and how useful it was. Consumer confidence is high around storing food, but it can be misplaced, so they're not always right. And then many consumers don't recognise that packaging can protect food in the home. They recognise that it protects it from the factory to the superstore and then to the superstore home, but not in the home. And then in terms of packaging innovations, the ones that were rated most useful to consumers in helping to prevent waste were reclosable packs, and then packaging that makes the product last longer, and also split packs. So essentially what we're looking for is a consistent message to consumers that will encourage behaviour change. And what we believe that is particularly important for fresh produce is date labelling, so use of a single date code, which essentially means removal of the display until date, and helping consumers to understand the difference between best before and use by dates. Clear and consistent guidance for storage in the home, and research shows that storing produce correctly can extend their life for up to 2 weeks. And then also we have the use of packaging innovation and helping consumers to understand that role of packaging. So here are some great examples of actions that have already been taken. We have on-pack guidance showing here that some fresh produce is best stored in the fridge when it's taken home. And then we have the use of packaging innovation and technology. So for example, the use of ethylene absorbing strips to extend life. And also we see split packs, so for example, salad leaves and spinach. And then here at the bottom we also have an example of an in-store point of sale information telling consumers where bananas are best kept. So we also really like to see the Love Food, Hate Waste logo, plus website details and hints and tips on people's packaging. And produce packaging tends to have more space than some other products, so lends itself really well to this, as you can see here. So there are also some useful links on this slide, which take you to a Get Involved in page on the Love Food, Hate Waste website, which will tell you what you can do to support Love Food, Hate Waste. So in terms of research and evidence, we have our main household food waste report that was published in 2013. And we also have 2 reports which come from further analysis of that data. And these are the product and people focus reports, all of which could be helpful in shaping your actions. So we have the product report published in June 2014, and that contains information like the percentage of purchases wasted in the home, the sizes of the individual instances of waste, so they're not all little bits of waste, detailed reasons for disposal, and then the proportions of packs wasted and whether items were whole or unopened when they were thrown away, and also when waste is disposed of by meal occasions and days of the week. And then we have the People Report published in October 2014, and this looks at the influence of household size, age, busy lives, healthy eating and freshness, fussy eating, and also the presence of children on how they affect household food waste. Plus it also discusses opportunities for industry to take action. So just a couple of slides to give you a flavour of the type of information that's in the product report. So 12% of all food and drink waste was disposed of in its original packaging. And where food was thrown away in its packaging, 43% of that contained more than 75% of the original contents. 250,000 tonnes of food, valued at £1 billion, was thrown away in packaging that had not been opened. And fresh vegetables and salad waste comprised the largest fraction of this at 19%, so 47,000 tonnes. So half of the food thrown away due to not being used in time was either unopened or whole. And at 1 million tonnes, this represents around 1/4 of all avoidable food waste. And almost 3/4 of this waste was fresh vegetables and fruit. So the report also includes product level analysis, and included in this section of the report are fresh bananas, apples, oranges, potatoes, carrots, onions and tomatoes. And these products have been chosen because they are essentially believed to be indicative of their broader food category. And also the products represent many of the products that contribute substantially to waste in the home, so around 40%. Our recent work on product life has shown us that there could be a real opportunity to help consumers reduce food waste. So from a consumer point of view, not used in time is the #1 reason for wasting food. And the research that we published earlier in the year indicates that there are a number of opportunities for action. And these are around challenging food safety and quality buffers that are currently in place, and also identifying supply chain improvements that can all help to increase the life that's made available to consumers. And we will be publishing some guidance on this in both of these areas in a few weeks' time. So I just wanted to make you aware of our household food waste resource listing, which includes links to all of our research and evidence, which are grouped into useful headings, and the link is actually on this slide. And of course you will be able to access that through the digest as well. So finally, just to highlight that later in the year we will be publishing our 2015 retail survey. And this will be an update to the last one done in 2011, which looks at all the changes to products, packaging and labelling that I've just been talking about, and it gives us a view of how the industry has moved forward in terms of implementing these recommended changes. We also have a couple of case studies coming out that involve some work on fresh fruit, looking at the use of thermochromic inks for on-pack guidance and the use of packaging technology to extend product life. So you will be able to access these as well through the digest and also through the resource listing. So just in summary, considering both supply chain and consumer food waste prevention, why would you take action? Well, hopefully you'll already have a sense of that from what you've seen so far. So there is potential to cut costs within your business. And in our work, we've seen on average a waste reduction potential of £1 million for a manufacturing site. Reducing food waste is important to your customers, whether they be retail customers or consumers. And minimising waste and extending life through supply chain improvements can in fact have an impact on product availability in store and lead to increased sales. You can make your supply chain more resilient by preventing the waste of finite resources across the whole product life cycle, and therefore reducing the associated risk of supply. And you can also reduce your environmental impact. So preventing just 1 tonne of food waste prevents 5 tonnes of carbon dioxide equivalent emissions. And then finally, working on food waste prevention will also help you to ensure that your business complies with the waste hierarchy, which is in fact a legal requirement. So if you were to make a start today, we would suggest that you look at, from a supply chain point of view, using the 5-5-5 approach to identify waste as described by Philippa, to initiate an employee engagement campaign using the Your Workplace Without Waste materials, and then also looking at redistribution of any surplus food. And then from a consumer point of view, get involved in the Love Food Hate Waste campaign, look at your date labelling and storage guidance, and also about how you could explain the role of packaging or use packaging in terms of consumer food waste prevention. So this is just a quick reminder about the digest, which will direct you to all of the information that you've seen in our presentations today for both supply chain and consumer. So that's the end of our presentations, and we're now just going to move on to a quick questions and answer session. So I think we've actually got a question here for Philippa, so I'm just going to hand over to Philippa.
Thank you, Sue. Yes, got a question from Tiny at Tesco. I work with suppliers, and would I be able to follow this up with our suppliers? Yes, definitely. All of these materials are free for any food and drink company to use. It's not just for Courtauld signatories. So, for example, the digest is in PDF format. You could email that to all of your suppliers, and that all links back to the WRAP website, where, as I say, all the materials are free for anyone to use. And we really would encourage people to spread the word with their suppliers. You heard me talk about how when you collaborate, you get the biggest returns. So that's really important. And Tiny, I know we should get some of this stuff up onto your the Tesco supplier network, because that's just the sort of thing we should be disseminating there. So yeah, definitely, let's do that.
Okay, thanks, Philippa. I've got a question here for me, and that's around asking how we can educate customers on the difference between best before and use by dates, and also how they can recognise food spoilage themselves. So my response to that would be essentially really to follow WRAP's recommendations in terms of labelling and also consumer education. In terms of labelling, as I said, we ensure a single date code, so that's removing the display until date. And in fact, research shows that people's understanding of the difference between a best before and a use by date does actually decrease when there's another date, like a display until date there on the packaging. And then in terms of the differences, the other thing we recommend is making sure that a use by date is only used when it's required, and also making sure that it's reinforced when it's used. So using statements like "do not exceed the use by date." And then finally, it could be about using messaging to educate consumers both in store and online. So I think we have another question here for Philippa. So I'll just hand back over to Philippa.
Hi, yes, thank you. And this is one I've had before, actually. It's about what is the difference between IGD's Working on Waste campaign and Love Food, Hate Waste and Your Workplace Without Waste. And I appreciate that all these initiatives can be confusing. But as Sue's been talking about, Love Food, Hate Waste is all about reducing consumer waste. And that's exactly what IGD's Working on Waste campaign is designed to do as well. It's targeting employees in food and drink companies, but it's targeting them as consumers to reduce waste in their homes. Whereas, as you've heard me talk about, Your Workplace Without Waste is all about the workplace. Now, they are, I think, really good to reinforce messages. If you can get people thinking about food waste at home and at work, it's only going to reinforce those behaviours. So, for example, we're piloting the training with Muller Wiseman, and they're planning to roll it out, the workplace training, at the same time as running some stuff on as part of IGD's Working on Waste campaign as consumers. So that's absolutely brilliant, that kind of approach. So hopefully that explains the differences, but also the synergies between all of those initiatives.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Philippa, for going through that. So we've just got one final question here, and that's around product life extension. So the question is really, is there actually really any potential for increasing the life of pre-packed produce? So I would have to really say yes to that, because some of the recent trials that we've been doing, looking at extending life using packaging technology, showed that actually that potentially a 2-day extension was possible on the existing product without using the advanced technology. So, as I said, I think my answer to that would have to be yes. So thanks everyone that sent the questions in, and anybody that if anyone has any questions afterwards, we'll be able to obviously follow those up individually. So just before we go, I just wanted to give a quick reminder about a few items that will be coming soon. So we have the Food Waste Prevention Digest that we mentioned. We have a Packaging Optimization Digest that Philippa talked about. We also have the Product Life Guidance that I mentioned. And then obviously we have the other webinars in the series. And you can actually request information about those or register for those using the workshop's email address that's on the slide here. So I'm now just going to hand back over to Helen, who will close the session for us.
Thanks, Sue. Finally, just to wrap up and say thank you for attending us today, and we hope that you found it an interesting and useful overview of food waste prevention for the fresh produce sector. As we said at the beginning of the session, the webinar's been recorded and will be published on the RAP website. We'll send you any follow-up information at the end of the session. We really encourage you to share this webinar with any of your colleagues who you think may benefit from listening to it. If you do have any further questions, we can get back to you individually and welcome any further comments through the email address on the screen, which is foodspecialist@rap.org.uk. Thanks again. Goodbye.